We are on.
We are.
Bertil Larsen, lovely to see you, my friend.
You too.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to have you on here.
Feels weird to sit here talking to you like this, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice.
well-
Nice to be here.
We've known each other for a long time. So to actually sit down and have, an official conversation, I think this might be the first
We have to
time.
do this in order to be able to have a beer.
That's it. Yeah. But we're both
Yeah.
busy boys. So, you know how it goes.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's just not possible to
Sure.
take the time out, and then you've got family and kids and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but really good to have you on. And we were just talking a little bit before we went live about what we're going to talk about and what we discussed or what we will discuss. And then also just about how we know each other in general.
Sure.
So our relationship started...
When did you arrive?
11 years ago?
Yeah.
11 years ago. Unbelievable. And we know each other through rugby, obviously.
Yeah.
So Old Town Shamrocks was actually a club that you had founded.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and a couple of others, but yeah.
Like, why rugby to start with? Like, I don't know if we've talked about this in the past, but...
I had played football and hockey myself. Like, I didn't play like super high level, but I always wanted to compete. And then when I turned early 20s, I finished, playing competitive sports. I started a business. I had studies behind me and everything. I needed to do something, and I felt that all these, bulagi, when you go and you play floorball with friends once a week.
Social sports.
Yeah, so that just didn't, it wasn't enough. So I felt like I need both mentally and physically to do something. And I had always wanted to try rugby. So that was just me in my pub, working in my pub, and then a guy walks in and says, "Hey, I play rugby for the Helsinki team." And I actually knew nothing about that, but I had rugby was familiar to me through TV because I had seen it abroad while going to pubs and stuff. I had seen rugby, and I always found it fascinating how you can combine a rough sport like that to actually being very much a mental, tactical game as well. So I just fell in love with it and started a club.
It's funny you say that about funny you talk about the tactical side, because a lot of people ask me, it looks just like a game that's just out of control. The rocks are insane. They're just people just jumping on each other. But actually, there's a lot of tactics behind the way in which you play.
Yeah.
And I think it goes without saying that your ability to succeed in different levels of rugby is also dependent on your ability to play to a game plan and complete phases over and over and over again.
Yeah.
To a plan.
And make decisions. How fast can you make a decision? How fast do you see things? I think that's the biggest difference between rugby maybe in Finland and going to better rugby countries, not to mention the tier 1 countries, of course. But
Right.
even everyone can run and everyone can throw a ball. We've all done that. It's not having you coming here to play rugby is not the same
Right.
as me going to Australia and play hockey. Well,
Right.
maybe nowadays it's getting better, but still, it's the physical side is maybe not the biggest difference between the ones who have played rugby since childhood and really know exactly what to do.
True.
So it's really a lot of mental things as well in rugby. I would say.
So do you think that's the part of the game that you enjoy the most, is the mental challenge? Of course, the physical part kind of comes naturally. But
I love everything. I
Yeah?
think it's the combination of it all and just getting away. It's like therapy to me as well, to just go to training and not think about anything. So it's really, really good.
Yeah, and there's nothing too technical or tactical about hitting a punching bag. So
No.
it's one way to relieve stress,
Yeah.
but rugby's more effective.
Sure.
I find for me also that rugby's always been an outlet for me, whether it was school, on the schoolyard and just getting out energy, or whether it was dealing with stress or whatever it might be. I think sport in general is really important for that. And I actually find that many entrepreneurs that I've met have some form of background or interest in sports. And I think it's one, the competition side. So being like wanting to train to improve yourself consistently or constantly. But also I think it's like the mental challenge paired with some form of exercise. So even games like tennis or whatever it might be. But I find that people in business or in entrepreneurship have some form of interest in sports. It can even just be watching it.
Probably. Yeah.
So yeah, rugby is where we met.
Yeah.
And then you actually gave me my first half decent job in Finland.
Didn't you worked prior to that, didn't you?
Well, I had the building company.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I had never worked for someone up until that point.
Yeah.
So I didn't get like a great salary while I was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it was my first business here,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how things worked. But then your family bought a building in Porvoo.
2015, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
2015. And then I helped with the renovation and then helped with the maintenance side.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first official like employment job.
Yeah, because I remember hearing, I think your wife said that you've gone to Lohja to look for a job. And I felt like, what the fuck, man? I have to help him. So we actually had a job opening there, and I thought, why not?
Yeah, it was a pity position.
No, it wasn't. But also, like, it's nice to help out if possible. So
yeah, well, I think
sure.
It's an internal value that I think you have as an individual, that you really want to help in many cases, and I think Critics is one of those, brainchilds of that ethos that you have internally, and we'll talk about Critics later on. But
cool.
I think you as an individual have this internal desire to, support. I'm not going to say like help. You're not like, I wouldn't say you're charitable in a way, but you definitely, if someone comes to you and says, hey man, like, can you help me move my couch this weekend? You'll do what you can to come and help. And I think that's like an important part of your personality and who you are.
Cool.
So there you go. Just, yeah. Guidance counselor Curtis.
Yeah.
No, this is actually a therapy session.
Yeah. I can tell.
And so let's talk a little bit about your family while we're on that topic. So 2 siblings.
Yep.
Nicole, Linda.
Two sisters and a brother. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 3 siblings. Oh, yeah, right, Tina.
4 kids. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And yeah.
Yeah. So my family, I'm from Porvoo. We come from a family of, you can say, like entrepreneurs. Like most of my family has been an entrepreneur at some point, at least. Like my brother, both of my sisters have been doing something. My dad, my granddad, even my mom had her own company.
Your mom lives upstairs,
and she lives in this building. Yeah,
she lives in this building. Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's been doing something, and it's not like we were brought up to be entrepreneurs or anything like that. But it's always been, I guess it's easier when you've seen, like in good and bad, how it can go running a company and managing and taking risks. So it comes maybe more natural. But yeah, grew up in Porvoo. I have three kids of my own, like you said. All good.
They're all boys, right?
They're all boys,
which is its own challenge.
Yeah.
But they're growing up.
They're growing up fast. Yeah.
So your brother Nico works in the same building as you.
Yeah, he's actually like my grandfather actually started a company which was a boatyard back in the late 70s, early 80s, and they started fixing boats, and Lamor, which you also mentioned, actually got started from the boatyard, because the boatyard in Loviisa actually got like contracts to equip Russian vessels with oil spill equipment. Because they were forced to do that, like oil companies had to have them. And my dad was doing that at a time as a young man, and he realized this technology is not really gonna help in case of an oil spill, and he just like didn't happen overnight, but he he came up with this new brush wheel technology in oil spill skimmers. So you have a brush wheel and you have kind of a forky thing that the oil attaches to.
That's its technical name.
No,
It's on the patent.
And then you use a pump to pump it into a container, the oil, and that actually just it took a long time. They started with the Baltics, Sweden, blah blah blah, but then in the early 2000s, it really started taking off, and went well. And Lamor is actually like a global leader in that field still, and had an IPO last year and went public, and you know, it's grown a lot. So I've seen, like, in that sense, I've seen what it takes, and in good and bad, because my dad died at 51 from a heart attack in 2008. So it's always been a bit like a roller coaster. You never know what's gonna happen, and a lot of risks and a lot of work. Like, I remember as a kid, my dad was actually away more than he was home, like abroad, traveling, selling, trying to make deals, and then in the nighttime he was building the technology which he was selling almost.
The forky thing.
So when you said my family bought the building, it's actually the mother company of Lamor that owns the majority shares, and it's me, my brother, and my uncle who run it. That was a very long introduction to Lamor, by the way, but my brother is part of the company, actually owning the building as well. And my uncle, and my brother is also running his own company, Haler, which is a communication platform for companies where you can do multiple things and run businesses from. So
I just want to take a little bit of a step back. So your father founded Lamor with someone?
No, my grandfather actually founded it. But he was like pretty much retiring at the time, so my father took over when it was
and developed that technology
that
then kind of moved things forward.
And the boatyard was actually called Larsen Marine. And then when they came up with the oil spill technology, they called it Larsen Marine Oil Recovery. So Lamor comes from that.
Well, there you go. Fun fact. I never knew that. I've always actually wondered where the name come from, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So your dad comes up with this technology, patented it?
Yeah. Right. Well, there was a lot of patents going around like for years, and even like arguments about it. But I was not even born yet when it started, so I don't know all the details about everything. But
yeah. And then that company, you know, it's awesome to see a company like Lamor from a small town, you know, southeast Finland, Porvoo, be a global leader in something as important as I find personally important as oil spill cleanup. And I think that you seeing the way in which your dad worked, and like you said, he was away more than he was home. Does that give you also perspective on the kind of entrepreneur that you've developed yourself into today? Do you find yourself thinking and prioritizing in different ways because of the way in which you saw your dad working?
I don't know really. Like,
at least for me, because, you know, I also come from an entrepreneurial family.
Yeah.
And my dad worked very, very hard. Similar situation, builder, carpenter, joiner, and was, you know, would have those nights where he'd sleep at the office and we just wouldn't see him for a weekend or even a week, sometimes at a time. And I think that also, you know, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I felt like I was going down that path. Like I was just working. I didn't even kind of acknowledge time in the same way. Your day just goes, and then you just keep going until you get done what you need to get done. All of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, I haven't, you know, seen the kids out of bed for, you know, 2 weeks. And that happened so quickly. So at least for me, I went, that's something I've got to change. Like that's not the way that I want to be. And if in the case that I'm not sure kind of why your dad suffered the heart attack, you know, at that age, but it's probably safe to say it had something to do with work and stress and so on.
Of course.
It's something that I worry about because for me, well, you know me as well. You know, 80-hour weeks are just it's just normal. And I have to remind myself pretty regularly to just be like, I'll take this Saturday and I'll play Lego. You know, like that's just what I'm going to do.
But that's good. You have to do that.
You don't feel like it's been kind of shaped in the way you've worked as well?
Maybe. Like, did you mean that I tried to avoid what my father was doing?
Right. And just take those small moments, you know?
Sure. But I think it's also the time now is different than it used to be. Like, a lot of things are I don't think it's okay anymore to do what people used to do, like not train pretty much at all and just work all the time. Like, it's important to everyone that you do other things as well, mainly for yourself. Like,
really good point.
Yeah,
really good point. Absolutely. I you know, on that note, I find myself, you know, like this year coming out of COVID and, you know, working with the business in the segment that I work in. You know, this year I felt like I had to kind of tighten my bootstraps and just go for it, and that meant that I didn't train. You know what I mean? I wasn't focused really on anything, and you notice quite quickly how fast you deteriorate. You know, when you do that, and if I kind of imagine that if I was to do that for 30 years, you know, and not stay in shape, you can see how it would,
of course,
you know, match up with some form of, you know, heart attack, heart disease, some form of internal organ failure, effectively. So your dad runs Lamor, and now Fred, your uncle, is CEO. Still?
He's actually a board member now. He was CEO for many years. He's 11 years younger than my dad. So he started working as soon as he was in the age of starting to work, and he's been a part of Lamor since then.
Fantastic.
And
and I'm sure played a big role in the IPO process and so on.
Yeah.
So now sits on the board, and it's still effectively a family-run company in that case.
It is. Biggest owner is still the family, yeah.
Fantastic. Really cool. In that same building, you have a bar.
Yeah.
Old Town.
Yeah.
All too familiar to myself. And you actually moved from across the road.
Yeah.
So when did you establish the bar?
2010. That was my first company. 2010.
Why did you start an Irish bar in the middle of Porvoo?
Because in 2007, me and a friend of mine went to Ireland to stay there for a week during St. Patrick's Day and drink a lot of beer. and we go there, and it happened to be Six Nations on at the same time, which is, you know, like the Euros of rugby, like the best teams in Europe are playing. And it was the end of it, so we actually Ireland actually won it, and me and my friend were like, whoa, this is crazy. And then at the same time we had now I completely missed what I was about to say.
You were talking about how you came up with the idea for Old Town.
Yeah, but we went to should I start over?
If you want.
I wasn't sure.
I'm not cutting this out, so start over if you want.
Well, we went to Ireland. We went to watch rugby and celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and there we just saw that the bars are crazy fun in Ireland. And then I came back, and I was just talking to a few friends of mine, and my brother happened to be part of a crew. You know, they were like 5 people running a cafe in the building where Old Town later was founded. And it was back in the days when you could, like, let's start a bar, 5 of us, no one's gonna manage
We'll
it.
call it puzzles.
It'll be great. Yeah. So they didn't really enjoy it after a year, and they said this is really bad. So he just said, hey, you mentioned that you would maybe wanna start a pub. Now here's your chance. And I go, okay, well, I don't know. I have my studies and I have this and that. But then I just decided I'm going to do it because it's a perfect location. And it's very hard to find those in Porvoo, like you know.
Absolutely.
And so took a year of my studies. I never went back to study. And I'm still running it. And 2015, we moved across the street. So
yeah. How, obviously, I know how it was in the old place. It was much smaller than it is now.
Yeah.
Well, at least probably the whole floor plan's not too different in size. Like if you include the kitchen and stuff like that, but just the way it was shaped, it was an old building, a little bit,
They're both old buildings, but it was way more like intimate in the old place because the roofs are much lower. Now
Right.
it's like higher, so it's more maybe of a original, pub.
Yeah. And have you found that? What's the feedback been since you moved?
It's not the same, obviously, but you can't make the same.
Right.
So that was the first feedback. But most people who I consider friends have said it's really great and they're happy. But
they're lying to you. It's not the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, well, there's kind of good and bad, right? Because in the old place, when it was busy, it was kind of it was annoying. You would just stand in the middle of nowhere. With a beer like to your chest, and that was probably a good thing for you when it was that busy.
Yeah.
And in the new place, there's more space to breathe.
Yeah.
The air is better, but also because a lot of people go to watch sports there, there's more access to viewing, and there's that table pretty much in the middle of the room, where everyone loves to sit. I'm sure when there's some form of sport event on.
Yeah, I love it how you call it the new place. It's been there for 4 years.
It's always going to be the new place in the old place, even after 50 years. But that move wasn't really your choice.
No, it wasn't.
But did you ever have any moment where you're like, oh, maybe I'll close it. I'll think of a new concept.
Yeah.
Did you have that moment?
I never had the idea of closing and thinking about a new concept, but I had the thought of just closing, just not continuing, because we got the letter saying we have to be out by end of May or something, and I received this letter in the beginning of March, so there wasn't a lot of time, and luckily we had just received a letter from the guy who was running a restaurant in the same location that we were talking now, that he's closing his restaurant. So we knew, okay, there's space opening up in the building where I already am working and yeah, I'm the smallest shareholder, but I have my say. So it wasn't like a real serious thought about closing down, but it crossed my mind.
It crossed your mind.
Yeah.
Why did it cross your mind? Only because of that, or were there other things where you were like, I've been running this for so long? It was more about both, financial things, because I decided that either I'm going to make the restaurant and the pub, or I do nothing. And I was concerned that maybe the money won't last for both of them, because the bank didn't want to, give me more of a mortgage. And that was just like what I was thinking, like, is it really worth it? And can we do it? And yeah, we did it, and it ran good for 4 years. Not perfectly, but how much did it cost? A lot of people, I think, that listen to this, one is obviously I run Momotoko, and Momotoko now is a chain, and we have a system in place and so on. But to open Momotoko costs anywhere between 60 and 100,000 euros, depending on the lease, the location, the size. Is it got a kitchen, or am I turning it into a restaurant, etc.? How much did it cost for you to move over, and what did you kind of calculate your ROI to be, return on investment?
I really don't want to mention any numbers here, because but I can tell you that it's pretty close to a Momotoko one.
Okay.
That but the problem that I had there was that I took a loan for Old Town only, and then I
made it work.
No, then I had to use the same money to also fix up one.
Yeah.
It wasn't that much to fix. It was mainly paint and stuff like that. So the good thing with that deal was that I actually bought the bankruptcy from the old entrepreneur, and I saved a lot of money there in that sense. And,
well, I mean, it's a huge kitchen, a lot of high quality equipment. It's a good kitchen.
It is.
So
it is.
I was there when it was being built.
Yeah, but now it's all sold. So that's actually something that happened last week. So it's
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's always it's a bit bittersweet selling a business. I think in any case, because there's, as an entrepreneur, you kind of treat it like a model car. You know, the more you use it, there's little touch-ups to be made, and those touch-ups are improvements, and those improvements can mean better revenue, more customers. You always have ideas on what you can improve and what you're going to do. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, somebody wants to buy it. And now I'm in this position where I'm like, I still have things I want to achieve with it. But on the flip side, it takes a lot of pressure off me if I sell it. It's, you know, and I think, I'm not sure about your situation, but at least that's how I would feel in that moment. What about for you?
Like pre-COVID, 100%. That's exactly how I would have been thinking. But after everything happening, you know, with the whole culture of food changing, how people go out, how much money they can spend, how much money they have to spend, all that, it was more of a relief to me, because it's been a tough 4 years with all those things happening. And then afterwards, it's been a constant, you know, hoping for a good summer and hoping that the autumn isn't terrible. And
this month will be better than last.
Yeah, and like, it hasn't been bad all the time, but at the same time, I partly started the one restaurant because we needed a restaurant in the building. And it wasn't ever like a big passion of mine. Okay. Like, I did it because we needed a restaurant. I had some ideas. I liked doing it, but I think nowadays especially, you need to have your heart and soul fully committed to running a restaurant. Otherwise you won't make it. And I just didn't have the time, or, you know, I'm not a chef. I'm not really like, I don't have time to work either there. So it was much more of a relief to me, and still is. So. Well,
I mean, at the time you had moved the pub over.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, the old owner was closing. So you kind of, you almost fell into that situation where it was like, well, I'll do the restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't like, it was more like an anecdote than it was like a mission. So I think you did a great job, actually. And I think that it's one is overall, I think it's a tough space, because you need to do a lot to create the intimacy, to create the kind of category you're trying to achieve in that space. It's hard to imagine, you know, to people listening, but it's an old bank. So it's high ceilings, it's, you know, wide spaces. Now there's the bar there, but it was always like a complicated place to make cozy. And obviously coming from Old Town, where you had fully achieved your coziness, I think, you know, what was it hard to kind of figure out, and how am I going to like warm this up? How am I going to, you know, everything was white before you took it over. It was. And I, like, honestly, I didn't like the way they had made that restaurant look. So we actually put some color into it. I had some friends of mine who helped out, you know, who know more about matching, you know, interior and colors and stuff. And we just tried out things. And I think we made it pretty nice. But like you said, the space is very hard to make cozy unless it's packed. Right. So you really need to, like, somehow. Right. We did changes all through these 4 years, like building small walls to separate the spaces a little bit, having curtains or something else, you know, done. But yeah, it is a large space. But it's fundamental, I think, as an entrepreneur, to be able to sit back and go, okay, it's not working. What am I going to do to change it? Instead of going, oh, it's not working, that's it, I'm done. You know what I mean? I think that of course you should put a time limit on that, in my opinion. Yeah. You know, and but in any case, if in the case that you take that step back and you look at the space, or you look at the concept overall, and you go, okay, these are the areas that we need to improve. How am I going to do it? And it's just constant problem solving. And I think now, you know, you're an entrepreneur in multiple spaces now, with critics and so on, and background in, you know, in the pub and in the restaurant, and you did some consulting for a little bit, and with PL? No, what was it called? It wasn't consulting. Okay. It was, I've done many things. Okay, many things. Yeah. And the point being is, like, you just get really good at standing back and going, oh, well, we'll just do it like this. And we kind of make it automatic in our brains to problem solve small things that we can improve or change, and we don't see those changes as speed humps. And for those entrepreneurs that went through COVID, there were a shitload of speed humps.
Mm-hmm.
It was weekly changes. It was constant change in market, constant change in consumer behavior. The speed humps were constant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those that got through COVID just developed an even better problem-solving process. For you now, if you were in that same situation again, would you have done it the same way? Would you have opened the pub, opened the restaurant, gone through that process?
Fuck no.
Why? Elaborate.
Well, because COVID has already been half of the
Okay,
time.
take
You said
COVID,
knowing what I know today.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Take COVID out of the equation.
Okay, well then I think everything would have gone a lot differently. Because one hasn't been doing terribly. It's been
Right.
There's been good times and times when it hasn't done so well. There was one very bad summer, but all in all, I'd say if I would have more time and more passion to actually be there all the time and do that and nothing else, then sure, I would probably still be running it and be happy running it. But there was just so many question marks in the air all the time. So I actually can't answer the question, would I or would I not? But yeah, COVID was such a big blow to the whole industry that I would rather have been doing something else during that time. Yeah,
pretty close to joining Halo. Yeah. All right. So moving on to critics, because I know it's something you want to talk about. It's something that has been of huge interest to me.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I actually remember us at some point. I think it was during COVID, and I can't remember if it was the first or second year. But we were sitting down for a beer, funnily enough.
In one.
Yeah. And I was just like, mate, it's so hard to follow what's true and what's not.
Mm.
And you went, I might have an idea for that. And I don't know I know you had thought about it beforehand.
Yeah.
But was critics born out of what we experienced during COVID? Or was it something that had been developing in your mind for a period of time?
It had already been developing, but COVID just made it, stronger. The idea that something is needed, there should be a tool that can help people to find reliable news sources and to see different opinions, because there was just such a big part of the world becoming polarized in one way or another, and just
Right.
people in Finland, and Finland has the best, at least reputation in media and in tolerance towards fake news and all that. So still people in Finland were hating each other over vaccines and stuff. My neighbor didn't take a vaccine, he should burn in hell. Stuff like this. And
When you look back on those days,
yeah.
it was insane.
It was insane. And people just took that approach that I have to pick sides. And all the very American way of, if you're not with us, you're against us and all that. It really made me think something should be done. And then other things as well regarding media made me wanna do something. But it didn't happen overnight. I had been thinking about it since 2021.
Okay.
And it wasn't until in the summer of 22 when I actually founded the company. And it was just constant building up and coming up with ideas. And I'm always having visions or ideas, but not many are things I actually go and start a company for. So it just started growing on me, and I knew it's very hard. It's a very tough business to make it in, and probably 99 out of 100 businesses going into news fail. But we'll see. Let's see.
All right. What is critics?
Yeah, nice to listen to this podcast
Yes.
and you have no idea what it is. Yeah, Critics is this logo right here. Critics is a news platform, which is a app that combines the best parts of news aggregators. If someone doesn't know what a news aggregator is, it's a website or an app that gives you news from many different sources and then resend you to those sources. and social media. So we want to combine those two and make a tool that both feeds you with news from various sources, but also podcasts about the same subjects. You find everything in one place. And then the newest thing that we will add later is blogs. So we actually you will be able to write your own blogs on critics, and they will be combined with the news about a certain topic. And then we have many other functions as well, but
yeah. So the news article is generated into critics from different news aggregators. You see it there as an article, and then you can vote it up, you can vote it down. How does it work? How is it checked?
The way it works is we have two different sections. We have daily topics, which shows you the biggest headlines of the day.
Yep.
One headline has a card that says Donald Trump visited Helsinki for some reason, if you would. And next to that, and that's by CNN, for instance, but next to that can be the same article from Yle telling the same story and so on. And you can see more like endlessly if you want. You can also see videos, podcasts talking about it, and everything else. You can go in and read the article, and after reading the article, you can give a review. That's why it's called critics, because you critique news, and you can actually give your own feedback. So you can say what you felt about, was it a positive or a negative emotion that it gave you? Was it objective or subjective, the bias in the article? And then you can even say if it was trustworthy or not according to yourself. And then you can see the insights from all the reviews.
Okay.
And you can see on a map how, male, female, other ages, locations, how different people have reacted. And then you can even go and see how people have reacted to all the articles written by a certain media or a certain author. I don't know how people will like that part if we actually show ratings from the authors and journalists themselves. But that's like a way to create data instead of just noise, which the social media platforms are doing a lot. You know?
Just in ridiculous comments. That's
just comments, and it's not saved anywhere, and you can't really see, but you just feel that there's a lot of emotions there.
There's also a ton of value in just being able to open an article and see that 80 out of 100 people believe this article to be trustworthy, truthful, non-biased. I think that's really valuable information because, like you said, when we went through COVID, we really became polarized, and we were pushed in that position by media, effectively. And then obviously there's some human nature around, opinion and so on as well. But, the more you feed that opinion through articles and through media, the more passionate those individuals become about a specific direction.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of people who, to me, it feels like too many people just want to take sides in everything. And instead of just trying to see different perspectives and opinions and try to understand each other through like empathy, people are just getting angry at the other side. And then there's like the majority of people in the middle who are actually like, well, what can we actually say? Because someone's going to get angry if I speak my mind.
So critics is driven, your idea of critics is driven out of that wanting to see the middle group be able to have an opinion and go, hey guys, let's listen to each other. Let's review some information from both sides and then bring it into the middle here. And then we'll kind of come to a consensus on how we feel about it.
Maybe, yeah, but it's also like not only getting people to think in a certain way, it's also to open up, different approaches and different aspects to people who normally just read one single news source. There are a lot of people who only read one news source, or even worse, they read most of their, news from social media posts by friends who are from similar backgrounds and have the same algorithms feeding them the same stuff. So there's many things, but it's been an experiment at the same time. It's not like Critics was born from an idea and now I'm doing it. It's been constantly changing, moving. Now I have my employee who's actually doing all the coding. I don't have any background or any knowledge about coding. I'm just now learning the ones and zeros and the basics. But he's actually like a pretty smart guy because He's actually a former journalist, so it's pretty handy. And he went to study coding during COVID because he couldn't get a job in Finland. He's from Macedonia, so we constantly discuss and even argue about how we should go forward, what we should do, and it's like more elements and more functions, are born constantly because we want to improve it all the time.
Right.
But it's also tough because it'd be nice if it would be like, this is the target, here we are, and then when you're here, you're ready.
You can just see a straight line between there and now.
Yeah.
So what, obviously developing and creating a news app, especially one that is new to the market and brings a different perspective on the way in which we read information or understand information, that's not easy.
No.
What are the kind of biggest challenges you've had to date, and what are the challenges you foresee in the future?
Well, there's always, challenges, creating an app. There's a lot of challenges, getting financing, those normal things that you always have, like with any company. But I think people's reactions are the most, like, it's kind of funny because it seems like everyone has a very strong opinion about this. Like when you say what you do, some people become a little bit like, oh, news, okay, so you want to control people? And I said, no, we don't try to control people. Okay, so how do you stop trolls from coming in? And we go, okay, well, we have our own ways to not, like, you have to have a phone number, you have to, confirm that you're a person. Well, how do you stop bots? How do you decide what articles are allowed there? Like, how do you control that? Like, everyone has like a lot of questions about why it wouldn't succeed, and I find that pretty funny. I don't know if it's a Finland thing, but I've seen that same thing, like even with people who are not from Finland. People have a lot of like opinions, and that's fine. Like, opinions are good, but at the same time, if everyone's mindset is this can't be done because it's gonna fail for these 10 reasons, then it's never gonna, they're not gonna succeed. But if you take what you get from all that feedback and then you just push through, I think it's gonna become something great. But yeah, the biggest challenges has actually been mainly like related to technical things that we need to solve.
Okay.
And in the future, I think now that we're launching, it's actually already out on Android, so you can already download Critics, the real version, and try it out. Please do. But in the future, I think with a startup, just getting users, the marketing aspect and all that, like it's still so early. Like, there's all those channels have been around for such a short time that you can actually push. Even if you would have millions and you put that on social media marketing, you may end up with just a handful of users. Like, it's very tricky.
How do you think you're going to develop the users you have, like, in the future? Obviously, if marketing is not necessarily the solution.
Well, we are now looking for our second financing from Business Finland, and our application actually includes a package of a marketing service from a company doing that, and with them we've discussed that we're not going to go into like the old school way of marketing. We're not going to have taxis taped with the logo. We're not going to have our logo everywhere on Facebook and all that, but we will actually focus on getting people who care about this to give us visibility, to get on the news in Finland, to get on talk shows, to get to talk about this, and get more people to just try out the app. And then just so many functions on the app are not really worth anything unless people are using them. So it's a little bit of a, what do you call it, chicken and the egg, or something like this.
So do you think the pessimism that you've kind of experienced so far, do you think that's driven by a kind of concern? It's like, oh my God, there's going to be another news channel that I need to deal with and evaluate and understand? Or you think it's from a perspective of course there's always some pessimism around every new idea? Or do you think it's driven around, I don't think the app's going to be easy to use, or I'm not going to, like, what's So you came out with a beta version which included flight test. And
test
flight, sorry.
Yeah.
And I went through that and I left some comments and,
Yeah.
and so on and so. I'm sure you read some of them.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good way because it's going to give you some like indication of, okay, the user wants to do this, the user wants to do that. But do you think that you said the development's going to be consistent, but do you think the pessimism is driven from where? Where did it come from?
Well, not pessimism per se, but I think like a lot of people have opinions about how it should work. Like for instance, a lot of people, well, you've seen the whole like dialogue going around Twitter, X. He took our logo, by the way. After we started Critics, he changes it to the same thing. But so there's a lot of people who think, you know, everything should be controlled. Not all media should be like shown. There should be rules about what you should be able to post and read and publish and so on. And then there are other people who think, you know, everything should be allowed. Nothing should be censored. Everything should be free. Yeah. Anyone can say anything. And you know, I'm actually more leaning towards the second one. Like everything should be allowed. Because with our platform, if everything's allowed, it doesn't matter because everyone still has a voice to say what they feel, and you can still make your own conclusions if you see like some crazy article, you know, lying about something.
Right.
You will probably see people react to that and saying, hey, don't believe this, or you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you get those statistics that say, you know, hey, this is biased in this opinion, you know, or
yeah,
this
but there's
view,
always
or,
bias. There's always bias in
true.
journalism, and there should be. Like, I think it's fine that journalists speak their mind and they have a say as well.
Right.
Well,
if you ride the fence, like,
yeah,
if you know, you can't ride it forever. At some point, you have to be like,
yeah,
this is the situation. This is, you know.
Sure, but it's good that everyone can speak their mind, and it's the consumers as well. Like consumers of news nowadays, they don't just want to read the story; they want to be part of the story. So they want to comment and they want to share and they want to, you know, react. So I find that a bigger problem because mainly the people who comment the most are the people who just maybe don't even care much about, you know, what they say, and they may not even care about what reactions there may be when they say things. So I think it's also important that you can, you know, react to an article, for instance, without even showing it to everyone. Like say your opinion anonymously. I think that's important, even if a lot of people disagree, because I find that many people are actually afraid of speaking their minds because you know they're afraid that someone's going to be angry with them or you know put a stamp on them as certain people.
Right.
Like that's actually like COVID vaccines was a good example of that. And now after that, I wasn't a folio hat or whatever you call that, but I was like I was very much against the you know restrictions and everything, as you know. And
you were public about it too.
Yeah. And I was against it because, well, now later on we can all agree, I hope, that COVID wasn't as bad as everyone thought it was. And that was very much, you know, polarizing people and making them, you know, pick sides. And I know for a fact that a lot of people didn't want to say what they felt back then.
Right. Well, I think also the way in which media travels these days, the minority has the ability to speak the loudest. Yeah. And the people in the middle, you know, or the majority of people who are just going by their day and are pretty happy with like evaluating both sides, they don't really have much to say. So it's kind of natural that it heads in that direction, just of people just going, I'm speaking the loudest, so listen to me. And if in the case that, you know, if that's something that happens in critics, well, people can look at that and be like, well, hang on a second. Like,
sure, but you know, like, that's the thing. I don't think an app's purpose should be to tell the truth. Or there is a lot of different truths, like, to a story. There's not always, like, one thing that's right and one thing that is wrong. There's a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of different perspectives. And I think it would be great if people could at least cross-check and read two articles from, you know, normally differing opinions or medias that are, like, represent them. Because like me coming here to your podcast today, maybe I was super stressed and you've had a great day and you're very relaxed and you think this is a very relaxed podcast, and I'm like, I can't wait to get out of here, I'm so stressed. As an example, if that would be the case,
I can get you another beer if that
but like it's same with news. Like you
Right.
can't always say how something is and what's the truth.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
instead we should look for, finding the truth when we read news.
Right.
Everyone should make up their own perception of it.
their own truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, during COVID, obviously, the amount of stress and dealing with restaurants and hundreds of employees and opening, closing, of course, my mindset was in that state where I was like, this is bullshit, like, and I was just, everything I was reading, I was like, you know what, yeah, that's right, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so the emotional state of the reader actually does play quite a significant part in the way in which they view the position or the article.
Sure.
And if in the case that you have a way in which mitigates that by providing many articles that people can go through and
Yeah.
compare kind of comments, reviews, feedback, so on and so forth, it kind of maybe not solves the whole problem, but at least provides people with some mitigation to, okay,
Yeah.
in general, this is how it's viewed,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's one part of critics is this like critiquing news and giving feedback and reacting. But the other thing, we're also doing a lot of other, great functions that you can also tailor, make a feed of your own and see the kind of, categories that you like and subcategories and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're actually working on new, shared revenue model that we would actually take a small subscription fee from the users, and we would share the majority of the profits back to the medias. So the media companies, which are now not making a lot of money, like it's not a big business, especially with local media, the ones that are now behind paywalls. It's a dying breed, and it's the best journalism there is because they're actually out on the field doing real old school journalism, meeting people and investigating. So we are trying to come up with a way that we can actually, take a small fee, you can read everything, and we give the money back according to how many readers those medias get. So that's our goal.
Was that your idea?
Next. That was my idea, yeah.
I mean, that brings me back to the first thing I said in this podcast, was that a part of your ethos is to help or to provide support. And I think that
Okay.
it is really it is important that you kind of go into business in the same mentality, because a big part of our business is working with other businesses or people. And if you're an individual that only cares about themselves and, everything you're doing is just revenue driven and, all the decisions you make around subscriptions and stuff like that is just so you can fill your own pockets, then it reflects in the way in which the business is presented.
Yeah.
Critics, if it has that mission and ethos which is driven by your opinion on, well, this is an area that we need to overall improve the state of, I think that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I think
Thanks.
I think entrepreneurs having that mentality of going, okay, this is a problem I see. That problem is that the media and the small news sources are dying and are struggling. How can my business help?
Yeah,
And
it's solving problems.
problem solving constantly. And I think that problem solving also comes from that core value of going, right, here's the problem, here's the solution, doesn't fit within my core beliefs as an individual. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
And if you look at successful entrepreneurs across the board, in many cases they have very wholesome personal beliefs. Whether they're able to be actionable on those or not, if Gates really does, want to focus on bringing lavatories to Africa, I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. He's got a board and a bunch of other people that he needs to, make happy. But if the core belief of that entrepreneur is that I'm not just solving problems for me, I'm also solving problems for the consumer, and I'm solving problems for people in my bubble. In your case, media, then I really believe that's where successful business starts. I truly believe that. And I think for you doing that with critics and having that model is really, really valuable. And if consumers really understand what that means, that's really valuable to them. Being able to go, guys, we're not here to just go, here are the biggest news platforms you can find. These are the articles. We're also going local. We're going blogs. We're finding, different news sources to provide different opportunities for you to find information.
Sure.
Really valuable.
Thanks. Yeah. And it's not only about like becoming the biggest. I think like biggest growth, these words are, a bit overused. Like I think you can also have a platform that is maybe not the biggest, but it can still be, the best, or, the one that people still want to, subscribe to, even if it would start only in Finland at first. Like, so our goal is to solve problems, not to become the biggest, best news platform in the world. So that's actually what we're aiming at.
Yeah. And like I said, I truly believe that you as a person, you believe that inside as a problem solver. And that's where this comes from. And, I think that the kind of core value of the business, which is driven by the entrepreneur or the founder, creates smoother edges on the wheel, right? And allows that wheel to roll down the hill better.
Where did you read that?
No, I just came up with it.
Okay.
I think was it good?
Yeah, it was good. I'm
going to put that into a soundbite.
Sounded like a tattoo.
You can tattoo it if you want. I'll write it down for you. So that's truly what I believe. It's also the way in which I like to run my business. And I think that's a part of the journey of becoming an entrepreneur, of going, okay, this is who I am. This is the business that I represent. But this is also what the business's representation of me is, So critics being a news source is, a source of multiple articles that also problem solves and delivers to multiple areas in that bubble is super, super valuable. So moving on from that, what are kind of the next steps for critics?
Well, we're now going back and forth with Apple, because Apple has so many criteria when you launch an app on their platform, and it's ridiculous. But we're getting there slowly. Like they want to make sure that there's no risk of anything happening, like copyright violations or anything. So we're launching next week.
Fantastic.
And well, like I said, it's already out on Android. We're starting to work on languages next.
Okay.
So we're gonna have, using the same technology completely, you can change the language and you will have news in Finnish, Swedish, whatever. We're trying to make as many as we can with us, as at least.
Just to be clear, will it translate articles or find sources in that language?
We will add sources from that language.
Okay.
So
cool.
So you can just choose your language. That's the goal anyway. Well, we'll start with Finland anyway, because Finnish is a very hard language. So if we can do Finnish, we can do anything. And then we're also like adding the whole like dialogue aspect. Like I don't like the comment sections on articles, because that's just gonna create the noise. But like we said, like I said, we're gonna have some features that are a little bit like Twitter, at least, that you can recommend articles, 10 per day. You can make a list of 10 articles that Curtis like wants people to read, or thinks it's important that people see this, and then on those, people from your network can then have a dialogue.
Okay.
And
so on the main article page, you can't leave a comment. Only on your own feed.
Exactly.
Awesome.
But then also you can, like I said, if you go into, I call it clusters. So if you see in your feed, you see like news about any event. You see a lot of stories about two presidents meeting somewhere in Europe, for instance. When you press that, you will see articles, you will see videos, you will see podcasts, and then you can also see blogs at the bottom, and you can press write blog, and you can write a blog which will then be combined with those stories, so anyone can actually see your blog, and you can like have a more constructive dialogue and express your opinions, instead of just like writing "this is bullshit."
Right.
Send. You actually have to like make an effort, which will probably cut out a lot of people who would just
Right.
write.
Are you going to have like a word minimum or like for the blogs? Or
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
But I think we need to have something like that. Yeah.
some form of...
But these are future things. We're probably gonna do that. Maybe start of next year.
Okay.
Maybe.
So the app is launching with obviously the main feed and the individual or personal feed.
Yeah.
And then anything else?
Well, you have those two already.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
is that it?
I guess that's a significant part.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But then you have a search. You can search for news.
Sure.
You'll find them. You can, like I said, you can go in and check the insights from different medias. You can listen to podcasts. We have a player. You can listen even in your car. You can shut off your screen and listen.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's pretty cool.
So if you want to put this podcast on there,
Yeah, I would. Do you have an RSS feed?
Yeah, sure.
Well, send it to me.
Yeah,
I'll add it tomorrow.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can now catch the Poka podcast on Critics. You heard it here.
100%.
But really, I'm really... I've always kind of looked up to you in a way because part of your entrepreneurship journey, it hasn't been easy. You know what I mean? And I think that you took yourself... You could have easily just kind of joined the family company and jumped in that, puddle and gone, cool, this is my role, this is what I do, and so on. But you decided, no, this is me. I'm entrepreneurial. I'm going to do this. I'm going to discover this pathway and walk down that road. And I think that's really... it speaks to you as an individual again, being able to do that because your family company is big enough that you could jump in there and you could find a role for yourself in some area or...
I could have at least, but...
You could have, that's right, in the past.
Yeah.
Now it's, you're a totally different person.
Yeah.
And that's been developed from grinding through.
Maybe, yeah.
It's also why both of us have no hair left.
Yeah,
true. But I think that your journey has been, constantly interesting to follow, working in different markets, different areas, and now with Critics, I truly think that actually you've found something that speaks to what you believe. And I think that's really important. I think you've done really well. Congratulations.
Thanks. No, but I believe in pubs as well.
I think we all believe in pubs.
I believed in Old Town too.
Of course.
But yeah, thanks. I didn't think of it that way, but who knows?
It's a part of the journey.
Yeah.
Right. So, and Critics now, so it's out on Android, it's coming out on Apple. Are you going to be able to see it online? Is there a website?
No desktop version yet, at least.
Okay.
That's also something we're thinking about because it's so much easier to do. And we're now thinking we should have just made that when...
First.
Because it's like with apps, it's tricky. And I had no idea, actually. I was told it's tricky to get your app out on Apple, but it's way more tricky than you'd think. And they have the right to decline you with no reason. Like it's like a supermarket has the right to choose what they're selling. Okay. So they can just decline because they don't. Yeah,
they don't like
it.
You have the same logo as Elon Musk, or vice versa. Don't worry, I'll bring it up with Elon next time he's on this podcast. I didn't film the last one, so I'll have to film the next one with Elon.
Yeah,
I'll bring it up. I'll tell him, hey, come on, mate, that X logo, it's too close.
Yeah.
Well, Beto, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our podcast.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man, so...
No, I loved it. It's fun.
Good. And it was also great to hear about, what you're doing now, what you've done in the past. I think for a lot of people listening, they really enjoy hearing a part of the journey, but also kind of where it's ended up at this point.
Yeah.
So continue to follow you. Where do we follow you? LinkedIn? Critics?
I'm very bad at social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. You'll find it with Petter Larsen. But critics.ai is the website where you can.
I suggest everybody starts there. I think Critics is going to be great. I got to use the beta version and really enjoyed using that. So
well, try this one because it's way better.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing all the bugs that I commented on being solved.
Please do.
I left you plenty of comments, so
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
See you later.